it produces only 0.07 ton of the CO2. So if we are substituting such slag, then it will prompt the improvement of substitution, improvement so that we can use it as a cement replacement. If we are not using it as a replacement, if we are disposing it off, then disposal of such slag will cause the problem for the environment. So as I said, it will save energy, it will save cement, so overall it will be very economical, it will save cost, and it will make our the structure more cheaper comparison to the other one. So now coming to the chemical composition of the GGBS, here we can see that the calcium is in high amount, so it will be responsible for the formation of CSH gel, and then it will contribute to the strength development. These are the elemental composition of the waste glass. These are the applications. We can use GGBS for alteration of the soil so that we can improve its strength. We can use it for site concrete manufacture, then grouting purpose, water sewage treatment plant, chemical industries, tunnels, water retaining structure, concrete pavement. So there are various application of these. Now coming to the advantages, GGBS is very advantageous to prevent the risk of the damage caused by ASR, which is alkali silica reaction. It is widely known as concrete cancer. It is also prevent chloride penetration to the concrete, which can corrode our reinforcement in the concrete. Then it can also prevent the sulfate attack, so that which causes spalling of the concrete surface. Now coming to the introduction of waste glass. So we saw that we are replacing cement with the GGBS. So we also want to make our structure more cheaper. So we are replacing here fine aggregate also with the waste glass. So as we know, waste glass is a non biodegradable component. So if we will use it in our structure, then it will make our structure more more, it will make our environment more sustainable. These are the literature reviews. As we can see, various researchers have replaced GGBS by various percentage, and they have what they did, either they calculated mechanical strength or creep and shrinkage, and try to find the optimum one, so that we can use that percentage and without affecting the strength, compressive strength of the concrete. These were the what previously various researchers have done. So we can see uh, some of them has also replaced waste glass by varying different percentage, so that we can get the optimum one for the waste glass also. So now here we saw that previous studies have verified the different percentage of GGBS and waste glass used in OPC for obtaining the strength and durability at its optimum. In accordance with this result, in the present work, we have tried to make an effort to get the optimum substitution of GGBS as well as waste glass. So first we have find out the optimum one for GGBS, then we keeping it constant, we tried to find the optimum one for the waste glass. These were different strength tests we usually do, like compressive strength test, split tensile, flexural strength, and their respective shapes of the specimen and their standard sizes. These are the methodology. We have adopted different chemical proportion. Here what ratio we used was 1 ratio 1.64 ratio 3.38. So here we have compared the specific gravity and these parameter of the sand and waste glass. So we can observe that the specific gravity of sand is more than specific gravity of the waste glass. These were the concrete proportions. We have prepared five mixes, GG0, GG1, 2, 3, and 4, by replacing GGBS by 0, 15, 30, 45, and 60 percentage respectively. We after finding out, here we can see we have found out the optimum one at 45%. We have obtained we by keeping it constant for both the combination of both the mixes, we varied the amount of waste glass from 0 to 20% by an increment of 5%. So now coming to the most and important part of our this research, what results what we found out from the results. So in fresh properties, we found out workability, fresh bulk density, compress, and in mechanical properties, all the strengths, and then microstructure analysis. So as we can see in workability, we are increasing the amount of admixture, and the compaction factor is constant. So by controlling the amount of superplasticizer, we made the compaction factor constant, because workability was continuously decreasing. So the reason behind it may be due to sharp edges of the waste glass in concrete mix. Here in the graph, we can see that fresh bulk density is constant up to 5% replacement, but after that it is decreasing. So the reason of its decrement was because the specific gravity of waste glass was lesser than specific gravity of fine aggregate. Now coming to compressive strength, we can see that compressive strength is when we are substituting cement by GGBS, we are getting it maximum at 45% replacement. And compressive strength of both the mixes, we are obtaining it at 5% replacement of the waste glass. So the maximum increment in the compressive strength was obtained for 7 days at 27.9%, and at 28 days 46.22%. It was because GGBS causes slow pozzolanic reaction. So because of that, the early strength was less, but the later strength was very good. Now coming to the flexural strength, we can see flexural strength is maximum at 5% again for this one is for both the mixes and for 28 days. Now coming to split tensile strength, it is following the same pattern, but in comparison to the flexural strength, the increment at 5% replacement of fine aggregate with waste glass, the increase in split tensile strength is less in comparison to the flexural strength. We can see in this table, GG5, which is 5% replacement, is maximum split tensile strength. Now, coming to durability analysis, we can divide it in two parts, that is water absorption, chemical attack. Here we perform tests for immersion and constant pressure. So these were the results of the immersion and constant pressure. So we can see that as the amount of replacement of waste glass is increasing, the immersion is increasing as well as the constant pressure is increasing. So what we can also we have found also we have prepared mix for pH water for calculation of the strength of different pH water. So this was the mix control mix. These were the results and discussion in this regard. So we can see at normal tap water, we can see the slump is less than for highly acidic water, the slump is extremely high, then it is reducing. And then again for alkaline water, slump is less. In this result, we can also see that for compressive strength at 7 days and at 28 days, it is following same pattern. And the maximum strength, we are getting it as for highly alkaline water with pH 8.9. The same increment was for flexural strength and split tensile strength. We can see that in comparison to the highly acidic water, the strength of the alkaline water was much better. So what we concluded from our results was that workability and fresh density of the concrete is decreases, but all strength parameters like compressive strength, flexural strength, and split tensile strength are increasing. Similarly, immersion increases and depth of penetration increases approximately about 50%. Then if we are talking about effect of different pH on the water on the concrete strength, then we can see that slump of concrete increases as acidity increases. So it will cause a reduction in the strength of the concrete. And also flexural and split tensile strength increment was same as compressive, as I already shown in the graphs. Optimum strength was obtained for the pH value 8.9. So overall, to sum it up, I can say that I can replace GGBS up to 45%, replace cement up to 45%, and fine aggregate up to 5%, and we can make our structures more sustainable, and can make our environment more sustainable. And similarly, if there is scarcity of tap water, then we can use alkaline water in place of that water. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you, Anamika. Will you take your presentation to your first slide?
Yes, sir. Wait. Hello.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so you have mentioned the GGBS in it. I was just
Yes,
concerned
sir.
about it. That have you mentioned
Okay.
GGBS because it was just strength and durability of recycle GGBS and recycled materials. It's fine.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Uh,
sir. Yes, sir.
yes, really a colorful and good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Before asking some questions from my side, any questions from participants?
No, sir.
Okay, so it seems if you have questions, you can ask directly to the presenter or you can put up into the chat box. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Anamika, just one
Yes,
question
sir.
from my side.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I would like to know that which kind of study means you are obviously doing some kind of project on this thing, strength and
Yes,
durability of GGBS and recycled materials. But at what
yes, sir.
level you are doing this project? Is it UG? Is it PG?
Sir, it is at PhD level.
It is at PhD level. Okay. So I was
Yes,
just,
sir.
I wanted to know that you have given a lot of aspects. You have studied a lot of aspects actually. One more thing is
Yes,
that
sir.
you have conducted structural characteristics. You have conducted a lot many tests and you have concluded your conclusions with those tests. But have
Yes,
you
sir.
gone with any economical analysis?
Economical analysis is in what sense, sir? You would like to know, like
Means
what?
if I'm using a regular sort of concrete, if it is having some cost, so how the cost is
Okay.
getting reduced due to the use of this GGBS and recycled materials?
Sir, I have not analyzed, but like overall, when we are using GGBS, so I have used this material. So in comparison to using the cement one, like the material we regularly use, this one is obviously cost reducing. Not analyzed anything.
Yes, it's good. It obviously, because it is recycled materials, so obviously the cost will get reduced, but in terms
Yes,
of
sir.
numbers, it will be more prudential, I think so. Okay, it's just a small
Okay.
suggestion from my side that if you'll
Okay,
give,
okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
yes,
Always welcome for your suggestion.
if you'll give some economical analysis, then surely your project will be accepted widely. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So I'll not take more questions because we are having time constraints.
Yes, sir.
We'll quickly move to the next presentation. Anamika, you may stop sharing
Should
your
I
screen.
stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Anamika. Let us move to the next presentation. It's presentation ID 192.
Yes, sir.
192. Yes. Naresh.
Yes.
Yes, you may start your presentation. Please share your screen.
Yes, sir. Is it visible?
Yes, your presentation is visible. You may start.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Naresh Kumawat from MNIT Jaipur. My title is Prognostication of Seismic Performance of RC Building Employing Neural Networks. As we know, the objective of my presentation is, as we know that earthquake is a random phenomena and it is natural phenomena, and we also know that earthquake is quite an shows non-linear behavior. So what happens that after an earthquake, there is demand for rapid estimation of what seismic damage it has done. So we have conventional method like a non-linear time stay analysis, but it will take more time. So to reduce the time and for rapid estimation, we will use the ANN method. One more thing is that in conventional methods like fragility curve analysis method, we use only one seismic parameter, that is PGA or PGV or PGD. But in this approach, we can use more than one seismic parameters, and it will provide more information about our earthquake. So moving on to the contents is introduction, literature review, methodology, analysis, result, and conclusions. So first, introduction to artificial intelligence. As we know that artificial intelligence is rapidly growing and it is an interdisciplinary branch. And we know that every day we are using artificial intelligence in some form like decision making, recognition, visualization, etc. So this is also used in different branches like medical science, mechanical engineering. So I try to apply this in earthquake engineering or civil engineering. So how does neural network work? Neural network is actually part of artificial intelligence, and neural network just mimic our brain. So what we have this input layer, uh, and when we have output layer, and we have the hidden layer in which the processing goes on. So here it is the pre-processing part, it is the post-processing part, and in this hidden part, the processing goes on. So this is how our neural network works. Suppose we have two output, and it will identify that whether it is dog or cat. So we will give input from here, we will get output, and meanwhile in hidden layer, the processing will go on. Yeah. So these are some of the advantages of ANN, that it can work anytime, it has less error, right decisions, and some of the advantages. Disadvantages are that it is machine dependently expensive, and it is for experienced programmers. So literature review. First one is Stephens et al. Basically, it is the year 1994 where ANN started to grow, and they concluded that ANN give better results than the linear regression models. Next one is Arsalan et al. As we can see that there is a lot of gap, but within this time actually computation technique grows and we have better computers. So this is only after 2010 that ANN start to grow. So they concluded the influence of structural parameters, and they concluded that more the parameters, better will be the results. Next one is Ruffey et al. They studied the vulnerability of structure using artificial neural networks, and Kelger et al. They studied that even if the buildings are not included in the data set for training, ANN can give much better results than the linear regression models. Methodology adopted. First one, we have to select the input parameters. Input parameters from various various different buildings are taken, and after that nonlinear analysis has been done in the software SAP 2000, and we have generated the output parameter in terms of maximum inter-story drift ratio. After that, we have done the training of ANN. This part we have done in the MATLAB neural network toolbox. After that, testing and generalization of the programming code we have done in MATLAB. And after that, we have done the comparison between the values by SAP 2000 software, that is structural analysis software, and by the artificial neural networks. So there are basically some analysis procedure for seismic assessment. One is linear analysis and second one is non-linear analysis. Linear analysis is basically covered in the code IS 1893 2013, and non-linear analysis is we generally perform in SAP 2000. And there are two methods to perform this. One is time stay analysis and other one is pushover analysis. So moving to the next one. Yes, for non-linear analysis, we have to consider basically two type of non-linearity. First one is geometrical non-linearity, that will consider the p delta effects, and other one is material non-linearity, that will consider these PM hinges. So problem statement is that I have considered 100 different buildings with varying floor and varying grade of concrete and other structural parameters I have mentioned in the next slides, and I have considered 10 earthquakes from past, 10 earthquake data from past. These data are taken from Pierre NGA Waste Library, and these earthquakes are taken from different areas of globe, so as to consider the random phenomena of earthquake. So basically we have 1000 training examples. For each building we have 10 earthquakes, so 100 into 10 is equal to 1000 training examples. Total number of input parameter is 20, that is 14 structural parameters and 6 seismic parameters. We will see next slide what are these parameters. So size of input matrix is 20 by 1000. This is the size of our input matrix or input parameter, and output parameter is 1, that is maximum inter-story drift ratio. So our size of output matrix is 1 by 1000. So these are the different structural parameters: number of base, number of story, grade of concrete. Some of the structural parameters I have considered in this problem. These are the more structural parameters, and these are the other one. So these are the various earthquake I have considered for my work. El Centro, the famous one; Northridge earthquake, 1995; Kobe earthquake, Loma Prieta, Taiwan; the Indian one, that is Bhuj earthquake, Friuli, Koesli, Hollister, and Taiwan earthquake, Trinidad earthquake. These earthquake these earthquake are from different parts of the world, so as to include more and more range. These are the various seismic parameters: PGA, PGB, PGD, spectral intensity, dominant period, effective duration. As we know that in most of the conventional methods, only PGA is used. But what PGA is? PGA only give information about the amplitude of earthquake. It does not give information about the frequency content of earthquake and the duration content of earthquake. For example, if an earthquake has less PGA, but if it has more duration and less frequency, then it will cause more damage, even if the PGA is less. And we will see in the results that it is happening. So these are the different values of seismic parameters calculated for the 10 earthquake considered, and these are the value of seismic parameters. I have calculated these value of seismic parameters in the software Seismosoft Seismosignal. The output parameter, that is the damage index, we have selected maximum inter-story drift ratio. MIDR is defined as the difference between displacement of two floors divided by height of that floor. And for a given number of height of building, we have selected the maximum value of MIDR for our study. So these are the different values of MIDR, and I have taken this from this reference. If our MIDR is less than 0.25, then it will be no damage. If it is greater than 1.5, then it will be collapse, and accordingly other values. So basically this is the neural network architecture, how our neural network works. So this is our input parameter. Here in our study, xn is equal to 20, that is 20 number of parameters and 1000 number of examples. So input matrix will be 20 by 1000, and we have these weights and biases. In starting of the program, what we will do, we will randomly assign this value, and we will follow the back propagation algorithm. Back propagation algorithm is basically a gradient descent, or what we can say that it is a differentiation. We will try to converge our function so that the values we will try to converge our function and find the values of these W and B. And this is also called as supervised learning, because in supervised learning we already have the input parameters, we also have the output, and we have to optimize our function. So this is our activation function, and output is equal to weight into input parameter plus biases. So this is the procedure adopted for artificial neural network. First we have to normalize the data. After that we will randomly divide data into training data, validation data, and testing data. After that we can follow any training algorithm. In my study I have used the backpropagation algorithm. After that validation and testing, and after that results. So these are the different ANN hyperparameters I have used for the study. Number of training examples is 80%. So we have 1000 examples. So 800 examples have been used for the training of the data, and 10% each for the validation and testing. Iteration number I have taken 2000 for the training of the algorithm. Learning rate is 1. We can edit it. If learning rate is slow, then our program will take much more time. Architecture is basically I have used the multi-layer feed forward network, the most basic one, and algorithm is backpropagation. So this is the problem one. These are the various structural parameters I have used, and this building is subjected to the past earthquakes, various earthquakes, and we have get MIDR values for different earthquakes for this building. Similarly, I have taken 100 buildings and subjected to 10 earthquakes, but I am showing some of the buildings here, results of buildings. So in this, what we have done, we have increased the grade of concrete, and we are using better material. So we can see from the comparison of these graphs that the MIDR value is less as compared to the previous one because we use the better materials. And we can see that this value 0.3 lies nearly in the slide damage part. Next is we have increased the height of story, and we can see that as compared to the previous one, we can see the MIDR values are more because height of story is more, because we know that height of story has a predominant effect in terms of earthquake response of structure. Similarly, in this we have increased the grade of concrete, and as expected, the MIDR values are less as compared to the previous one. Next is we have taken the high-rise structure, that is number of story 20, and other parameters we have considered, and we can see that for this the damage is between 1 and 1.5, that is severe damage for Northridge earthquake. And we also can tell that Northridge earthquake the PGA value is maximum, so it is causing the maximum damage. But in case of Koshali earthquake, the PGA value is less, but even it is causing the more damage because its effective duration is more. Similarly, in this problem, we have increased the grade of concrete and beam and column reinforcement ratio, and we can see that from the previous results, it is performing better, and its value is between the moderate damage as compared to the severe damage in previous case. So these graphs we have calculated in the MATLAB neural network toolbox, and this black line, it shows y is equal to x graph, and these blue points they show the x coordinate, they show the MIDR value calculated by SEP 2000, and y coordinate value calculated by the ANN. And we can see that these points are scattering like this, and after the function fitting we get the regression value like this. If we change the number of hidden layers and the number of neurons in hidden layers, then it can show some better results. So the conclusion is that data generation for neural network analysis has been done. As we know that in neural network problem, 80% of the work is to generate the data. Most important part of the work is to generate data, and we have done that in terms of various structural parameters, seismic parameter, and damage index. And ANN accuracy, we have seen that it's ranging from 94% to up to 99%. But in case of linear regression models, it's very less. Even having smaller PGA value, Koshali earthquake does the severe damage to buildings. So what we do that in fragility curve analysis method, only we use the one seismic parameter, that is PGA, but it cannot predict that with that much accuracy. But in this ANN method, we can include more and more seismic parameters. For my study, I have taken 6 parameters, but still we can consider more parameters. There are even more seismic parameters we can include. And as usual, that building with poor materials are damaged more due to earthquakes, as we have seen in our example of some of the buildings. So I can conclude I have time history analysis and analysis on subjective, and I calculated, based on these we have compared the values of and calculated by ANN, and we can see that ANN predict better results. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you, Naresh sir.
Yes, sir.
I'll unmute the participants. If they want to ask any question on the same presentation, you may ask. I'll just put up the request to unmute. Yes. So if anyone is having questions, you may raise your questions or put in chat box also. It seems that there is no question. By the time, I'll just raise one question from my side. Just can you take your presentation to the slide where you have mentioned the earthquakes, various earthquakes that you have considered as an input data set? Yes. And the next one? So you have considered this 10 earthquakes as your input data set?
Yes, sir. Seismic parameters of these earthquakes, sir.
Seismic parameters of these earthquakes?
Yes, sir. Seismic parameters I have calculated from this software, Seismosoft Seismosignal.
Okay. So any specific criteria that you have opted for selecting this 10 earthquakes, specific 10 earthquakes?
Sir, specific, there is nothing specific. I have just randomly selected the earthquakes because we know that earthquake is a random phenomena. So to cover the more and more range, I have selected these earthquakes, and it includes most of the famous earthquakes we consider, like El Centro, Northridge, Kobe, Loma Prieta. These are the most common one, and I have also selected the Bhuj earthquake. That is
Yes.
the Indian one to.
The same was my question actually. That what if we select more earthquakes which have occurred in India itself? Means in Indian scenario, if we try to simulate
Yes,
this thing, won't it be more helpful for us? Is my question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can include more earthquakes. So in this, sir, we will change the number of earthquakes. Okay.
Okay.
For example, we are taking 10 more earthquakes from India, and so then it will be 20. And our number of training example will, in this case, will be 2000.
Okay. So accordingly, our model will be more accurate in that sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
That
sir.
was the only question from my side. It seems that there is no question from participants. Thank you, Naresh, for
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
sparing your time and giving this presentation. Yes, you may stop your sharing your screen.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Let's move on to the final presentation, which we had left over in the first itself. It's with the presentation ID 188. I think so, Sahil. I'll just unmute you.
Yes, sir.
Sahil?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So shall I start, sir?
Yes. So you don't have any connectivity issues right now?
No. Actually, there was
Okay,
earlier.
fine.
No, it's okay, I think.
Fine. You may start your presentation.
Sir, it's visible?
Yes, it's visible. You may start.
Okay. So a very good afternoon to everyone. The topic for my presentation is damage assessment and flood inundation analysis via ArcGIS. I'm a student from MNIT Jaipur, guided by Assistant Professor Dr. P.V. Ramanna. So talking about the objective of my presentation is the pre and post processing of GIS data and HECRAS results. So what does actually mean that here I'm going to use the ArcGIS software to study the GIS images of the floods in a example of Baxter Creek in US, California, to get the flood inundation map for that particular area. Now talking about the contents of my presentation, it includes introduction, literature review, methodology, the flood inundation mapping, results and analysis, and finally the conclusions. So as we know that the floods are a major issues in the India, and India falls under the subtropical country. So floods are commonly widespread disaster. Intense rainfall, drainage conditions, etc., lead to the causing of floods. Floods are also considered the most significant natural disasters as the perspective of their frequency, financial cost, and more importantly, the impact on the population and disruption to social economic activities. So here, the flood inundation mappings would be very essential for the municipal planning, emergency actions, and also the flood insurance rates and ecological studies. This would give us an idea about what and how a community could manage pre and post the disaster. So for the introduction part, I would like to introduce you to the software that I'm using is ArcGIS with the extension of HECGeoRAS and HECRAS. This is the basic layout of the ArcGIS software. ArcGIS software is a open source software, and plus the extension HECGeoRAS and HECRAS are made by the US State Army Corps of Engineers, which is widely used in Europe and America. So talking about the literature review, I have gone through the various authors that have earlier studied the work on GIS using various methodology and ArcGIS as well. So my work here would be quite similar to the Mohammad Rejar et al. He used a SAR, that is synthetic aperture data, which is also helpful in case of the clouds and hazy atmospheres, and could easily be used with the help of ArcGIS software. The rest, like Ismail et al., did the mapping of the floods for the Najran city of Saudi Arabia, but he used the quite 2D hydraulic models. Similarly, the Rupal Ki et al., he did the flood management for the Surat study. He used the basic tools like spatial tools of GIS. Uh, So I would like to start my work with the methodology. The first includes the data, from where the data is collected, and then the classification of data and the analysis of data. So for the collection of data, we use the basic open source website, that is earthexplorer.org, where we can download any kind of file in any version, like DEM files, digital elevation models, which is basically used in this particular presentation, or could be TIN file also. So next is the data classification. The various data classifications that could be done here are the TIN or DM files, that is triangular irregular networks or digital elevation models. Or second one is aerial photographs, and third one is the land use. The one we will be taking is the DM files, as it can give the more exact value about the depth of the water and the flood conditions. Whereas we could also use the land use file later to get the idea about the how much is the different types of land use and land covers are affected by the floods. So coming to the data analysis, we are performing the data analysis using the HEC-GeoRAS extension, where the many features like the creation of data layers and their layer setups is available. So starting with the methodology, I would like to explain in a flowchart. The first step is the data collection. Data collection is done using the open source website. Then the conversion of DM file to the TIN file, because it shows more variables, and the layer stacking is done very efficiently. Then follows the HEC-GeoRAS pre-processing. The pre-processing of the HEC-GeoRAS includes the creation of streamlines, center lines, or flow paths in between the whole map, where we need to find the flood extent. Then follows the HEC-RAS modeling. HEC-RAS modeling works after the exporting the file from the HEC-GeoRAS pre-processing, which basically does is the creates a flow boundary conditions on the values which we have given during the digitization of the whole map, and also finds the helps in finding the delineation of the water content from the upper stream to the lower stream. Then follows the HEC-GeoRAS post-processing. Post-processing includes the export of water depth. How much is the water depth from the upper stream to the lower stream has been flowing, and how much is the area is the safe, and how much the flood extent could occur in that area. Then after the processing in the HEC-RAS, we finally get the flood inundation map for that area. Now explaining the procedure of the modeling. First step is the creation of RAS layers. That is done manually by the user itself. I have created the various RAS layers on this flood inundation mapping. Then I exported the RAS data to the HEC-RAS modeling. For that, the HEC-RAS modeling is done. Then the data from the HEC-RAS modeling is exported to the HEC-RAS post-processing. And finally, the boundary conditions for that are taken as a hypothetical to get an idea about the flood extent. Now coming to the creation of RAS layers. There are various kind of layers, like creating cross sections, creating ineffective flow areas, creating obstructions in the flood inundation mapping. So I would like to start with the creation of rivers. As you can see on the right hand side is the upper stream of the river, followed by the downstream at the left hand side, and in between is a interjection of the Tule Creek. This is an example of the Baxter Creek in the US California, as the data for it in the TIN file was readily available. So we use the digitization in here to create the rivers and the following the river banks. Here I am showing the individual layers, not stacked, so that we can get a good idea. Also creating the flow paths for the rivers. Then following by the cross sections. Cross sections we can lay down to our choice how much is the length of the cross section, and covering the perimeter on the cross section area of the map. And usually they are placed in at an interval of 150 meters. Also then creating obstructions like bridges. For that we can have an idea about how much the expansion and contraction of the flow paths is at the bridges. Then creating ineffective flow areas such as high-rise buildings, etc. These are done using the using of shapefile as polygons. Then creating obstructions, various obstructions like fire buildings, fire stations, or hospitals, etc. Then finally, the manual part is done. We export the this file, saved file in the exported in the HEC-RAS modeling, where the HEC-RAS modeling is done using the application of the Manning's coefficient in the HEC-RAS modeling. Followed by the HACROS modeling also gives an idea about the various cross sections. Like we have given a number of cross section, it automatically reduces the amount of cross sections to a value of 500, as these are not required in the HACROS modeling. Also giving the boundary conditions as an hypothetical values we have taken from the previous results, previous studies. So this gives an idea about the how much is the water depth would occur and how much is the rise of floods could occur in that particular area. And finally, and in the boundary conditions that are basically the hypothetical values, we get an idea of the water delineation from the upstream to the lower stream, so that one could have an idea about how much water extent is going to occur at the downstream, as the in this case the soil is alluvial, and the due to the banks erosion, there is a lot of speed increase in velocity at the lower end and the decrease in the upper stream end. So the basic operation required at the downstream end is much more. Then comes to the problem statement. We have taken the problem statement as the Baxter River. Baxter River, which has a length of 28.6 kilometers, ranging from elevation of 1.7 kilometers to a 0.5 kilometers. So this is the basic figure of the Baxter Creek River, and here is the we can see the third figure as a flood inundation mapping for the Baxter Creek. So this is the final flood inundation mapping I have created.
Sahil? Sahil, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Can you hear?
Yes. Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Yes. Now you're audible. Just go to two previous slides and you may start once again.
From results and discussions.
Just go to previous slide. One more previous slide. Yes, you may start from here itself, or just ahead of this.
Okay.
Yes, you may start.
Okay. Okay.
It will be more because you
Yes.
was muted. Yes, now you may
Okay.
start.
Okay. So,
Okay.
so here is the problem statement I'm taking. It's for the Baxter River Creek. It's located in US, California. The TIN file for this was easily available on the earthexplorer.org. So I'm taking the characteristics of the river that are shown, like length is 28.6 kilometer. The elevation of this river is extended from 1.7 kilometer to the 0.5 kilometers from mean sea level. So here is a flood inundation mapping that is done using the digitization in the editor toolbox manually. So finally, we're going to discuss the results and discussion based upon the attribute tables of the various RAS layers we have created. First is the flow path and the streamlines, that is shown in the shape of polylines shape feature. We get the length of the rivers in the flow path here for the upper creek and lower creek individually. Then for the banks also we have the polyline, which shows the perimeter of the banks. Then follows the cross section area. Cross section area is also done using the shape feature for polyline. Follows the bridge. Bridge is also a type of cross section here considered. Then follows the ineffective flow areas. These are made using the polygon shapefile features, which gives about the area and the perimeter both for the particular ineffective flow areas, and followed by the obstructions. These are same as the polygons. So here is a final example of the flood inundation polygon, where we can see that how much amount of area would get delineated if the cross section that we laid out happens to fall in the flood extent area. So for the conclusions, I would like to say that the HECRAS modeling is very effective. Then rather than the 2D hydraulic models that were earlier given in the literature studies, we can get a better idea about the flood in an area where the water surface is higher than the terrain and to be affected by floods, while the rest of the area is dry. Also, we can detect some bank erosion and the bed material transport from the upstream to the downstream, as the frequent floods led to a damage of like potential vegetation and aquatic habitat as well. Following by the recent study, we can see that the flood control and ecological restorations could be successful with the help of flood inundation mapping. And similarly, many projects could be restored in urban areas at the lower end of the stream. As we, at the lower end of the stream, there is a more chance of chance for the creation of artificial lakes. For that, it can be useful for the flood control as well, and for the local tourists to get attraction to the creek. So these are the conclusions to my presentation, and thank you. References and
Thank you, Sahil.
yes, sir.
Yes, I'll just request unmute to everyone so that if there are any questions from participant side, they may raise their questions. I think so. There is no questions from participant side. I would like to appreciate Sahil for your extensive study that you have carried out. I'll just request
Yes,
you to
sir.
just
Thank
open
you.
your presentation once again and just go to the first slide itself. So I may note your title properly.
Yes, sir. Hold on a second.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have used GIS for the topographical feature, it seems, and you have used HEC-RS for the flood
Yes,
analysis.
sir. The extension. Yes, sir. This is HEC-RS modeling that is done using this extension.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Fine. I don't have any questions from my side actually, and I think so.
Okay, sir.
Participants also do not have any questions, so it's fine. I'll really appreciate your work. Thank you,
Thank
Sahil.
you, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So shall I stop sharing?
Yes. You must stop sharing your screen.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So we will end up our session. Finally, going towards before concluding this session, I would like to summarize this session. We had in altogether 3 papers with the paper IDs 188, 191, and 192. So with the paper ID 191, it was Anamika ma'am who presented her work on strength and durability of GGBS and recycled materials. She had done extensive and very excellent study on the strength and durability aspects of GGBS and recycled materials. She had studied the most of the structural characteristics, we may say characteristics, in depth. Just the suggestion from my side was the economical analysis, how cheaper it might be using GGBS and recycled, how utilization of GGBS and recycled material would reduce the cost was the suggestion from my side. But even though it is a suggestion, she was very accurate with her topic. That was the strength and durability aspects. So it is fine. The next work presented was by Naresh sir on neural networks, use of neural networks for seismic analysis, in which I suggested if the number of earthquakes that were considered were more than the study will make that study more accurate. And finally, we had paper ID 188, which was based on the flood analysis using GIS and HEC-RS. So in altogether, summarizing, we can say in this session we had 3 papers, out of which 2 were from structural engineering, one basically on the materials, construction materials, and one was from the earthquake engineering, and final paper was from water resource engineering. So the paper that was related to the earthquake engineering, seismic analysis, and water resource engineering were related to soft computing, and the paper which was related to materials was with the analysis for its characteristics. the work done by all the presenters. I would like to appreciate the work done by all the presenters. The work was very extensive and they have worked really hard on their topics, and the presentations were very good. With that, I would like to conclude this session, and I hope that the suggestions given by me were really beneficial at your end. At the same time, I would request everyone to join the regular sessions that are ongoing with the details provided previously. And let us conclude this session. I'll stop this meeting. You may join the another meeting, the regular sessions going on. Thank you once again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.